If you really want to know if you are on the right path, you have to learn to silence the noise. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Gill. For the past 7+ years, I have been coaching in the fitness industry, helping people get into shape that they're truly proud of. I coach sales for the one and only Bruno Barami, and I help people essentially just get out of their own way and become the best version of themselves. Now, I was writing an email to my 30-day Mindset Mastery newsletter about the topic of being able to silence the noise and understand exactly what it is that you want and where you need to go next. Now, you're going to be faced with a lot of opinions for the direction that you want to go. Not only are you going to be confronted by thoughts that are being made up from your ego, but you're also going to be getting advice from people who aren't where you want to go. So there's only two voices who I recommend through my experience that are the most valuable ones to listen to truly know if you are going down the right track. And number one is that voice that you have that is observing your thoughts. So we have the ego mind, and then we also have the observer, right? The one that is watching everything that we do behind the scenes. Now, some people say that is the voice of God. Other people just say that is the highest version of ourselves. Everyone has their own way of describing it, but it's essentially the same thing. Now, that voice and that thought process that you listen to, typically we only listen to it when things get really bad, when we're at certain tipping points in our life to where we are confronted with very conflicting situations. And it takes people very long to listen to that voice. And typically what happens is that when they truly do listen to that voice, things change, and they change very quick. Now, as an example, and I told this story in one of my previous videos, I was consulting someone who just wanted a little bit more direction in their life and was having a hard time with motivation. And literally at one point in the conversation, I knew he already knew what he had to do, but he essentially just wasn't actually in any scenario situations where he gave himself the time to look internally. And what happened was this: I was there, he was sitting down, and he put on a sock on his left hand. Now that sock was representing his ego, and the right hand was representing God to him. And I just sat there for probably at least 14 minutes of him dialoguing back and forth between himself, giving himself the answers that he needed to hear without me interfering. All I did was look at him and provide him a safe space to have that conversation. Because every single time that he had those opportunities, he would resort to drugs, he would resort to video games and other ways to essentially not actually confront the very things that he was actually scared of. And that voice gave him the exact guidance that he needed. And he knew what he needed. He needed to learn how to forgive himself for the things that he wasn't showing up for. Whether it was being in shape, he was ashamed of his belly, he was ashamed of many things, but essentially he just didn't actually love himself. He said it many times he hated himself, but he wasn't able to really confront that thought because it was too painful until that situation. But that situation gave him the game plan that he needed in order to actually learn to start loving himself and then know the next steps for him to take. Now, I'll give you another example of people who try to give advice to you. And even though it is valid advice, let's say for the result, it doesn't necessarily align with the value system that you carry and how you want to live your life. So I'll give you a business example for me is that I've had mentors before to where they were making a certain amount of money, but they didn't have the same value system as me, which means they were willing to compromise things to make that money in a way that I wasn't going to, right? And their business model was built off in a way that dedicated a lot of time to certain aspects of the business that I didn't necessarily enjoy doing or want to actually design the business in a way that operated in that sense. So even though they had let's say the goal that I wanted, the amount of money that I wanted to make, their value system was just different. So they were willing to make the money in a way that aligned with their values, but not mine. So even if they technically had the goal that I wanted, if I had followed their advice, I would be living in a way that was out of alignment for myself. And that's why it's extremely important to be able to make sure that the value systems align and are similar, and they're in a situation that actually aligns with your values and the lifestyle that you actually want, right? If you're in a similar line of business to them, you got to make sure that if you had actually scaled that business, that the way that it looks to hit the income goal for you is also hitting the lifestyle prerequisites that you've set for yourself. But you wouldn't know that until, again, if you go back to point one, you actually sat down in silence and truly figured out what was right for you. Okay? So be very, very careful of the advice that you are taking in from people and the opinions that you are letting in to your life that will affect the outcome and direction that you are going to take in your life. So you want to listen to people who share similar value systems and have walked the path that you want to walk. And then also you want to listen more to yourself and remove the noise and put yourself in situations to where you can actually reflect internally to have that North Star and that compass, so to speak, to know exactly what you do value and where that will take you, okay? Now, there's levels of spirituality that you can study and understandings to realize that we all do come from the same place and that we typically know all the answers, but we just forget that we know. And we don't create the space to actually listen internally and trust that we know as well. Okay, now there's a book recommendation that I recommend for you if you want to go more into that topic of learning how to listen to that voice. It's called Conversations with God. Okay, you can start on volume 1. There's 4 books in that series. It's going to be a great guideline for you to start learning to trust yourself and that inner observer voice. Okay, so remember those 2 things. Listen to yourself a bit more, not the ego brain, but the observer. Okay. And then listen to people who share similar value systems to you and have walked the path that you want to walk and accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. And be very, very skeptical about the rest. I hope that helps. If you also want to join that 30-day Mindset Mastery Challenge newsletter, just check the description below. Feel free to sign up. There's no charge or anything, but you will receive advice like this that you've been presented in this video every single day for 30 days straight. And the whole point here is that by the end of those 30 days, you're going to come out a different person because your viewpoint of the world and the tools that you have been equipped with are going to completely shift not only your perspective, but also shift the way that you move in life and the actions that you take to become the person that you want to be. These are the very things that I had to learn over the past 10 years that truly made a difference in my life. So I hope that helps. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and we'll speak soon.